All right, guys, we're diving into one of the 6 criteria. Todd, do you remember the 6 criteria to be an
No
effective
idea.
coach?
No idea.
Forgot them all at this point.
Yeah.
My analogy when we give the level 2 lecture is kind of like Trivial Pursuit. You know those pieces where you have to have all 6 to win?
I thought that was bingo.
No, it's not bingo. It's Trivial Pursuit. You and Todd only ever get the sport piece. You fail at all the other knowledge. You get
the sport piece. Oh, because we
We're athletes.
there's sport. There's typically history. There's maybe
This
music.
is the nerd making fun of the jocks right now.
Yeah.
You guys don't know Trivial Pursuit.
Well, anyway, there's 6 criteria. So let's go over them really quick. The ability to teach, see, correct. There's presence and attitude, demonstration, and then the one we're going to speak about today, group management. But Todd, if you had to, which would you say you are best at?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
That's for me. It's an easy answer. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know
Presence
it is.
and attitude, because you're not very good at anything else.
Teaching, seeing, and correcting is dog shit.
Garbage.
I know
Wait,
that is. For
are you
sure.
giving me a compliment that I'm really good at 1, or is it that I'm really bad at 5?
Yeah,
this is the opposite of a poop. This is the opposite of a what is it? A compliment sandwich where it's good, bad, good. This is like just a bad sloppy Joe. You're just not good at any of them except for that one.
Just a mess. So which is yours, Todd?
I would say probably either, I don't know, teaching or group management, probably.
Fern?
I think I would go with. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it'd be biased. I think I do a good job with group management, but it's I think that's just come with reps, and I think I see and correct. But like I would probably say teaching and group management. I think everybody could always be better at seeing and correcting. I don't think anybody's ever got that one like completely dialed in.
Why are you whispering?
Me?
Yeah. Are you like trying to be provocative in the way you're talking about group management? Like, what's going on over there? Is he whispering, Todd?
I don't think so.
In deep thought.
Yeah.
You want me to whisper to you? Is that where you're at now? You're locked down in COVID. You want me to whisper into your ear?
Is that what makes you so good at teaching? You whisper?
Jay, you're good at this.
Say
You're
group
good enough.
management
You're
to me.
smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like you.
So let's dive into this idea of group management. Do you think CrossFit was the first fitness company to really recognize, like, hey, you need to be good at this?
No, I don't believe so. Wasn't there step classes beforehand and
I was gonna say
jazzercise and
and
all the rest of that stuff?
But isn't that a little
groups?
different? Where it's kind of like, sure, there's groups, but you're basically choreographed. Where, a CrossFit class isn't choreographed, and there's always so many moving parts and people at different places within the hour. Where in a step class, for example, it's like, all right, we're starting, we're all in the same dance routine.
Yeah, but there were boot camps and stuff like that beforehand. I don't know that I was involved enough in all the different facets of fitness for me to say that CrossFit invented the group class. In fact, I don't think they did. But calling out the categories of the areas of where you need to excel to be an effective coach, especially in this kind of environment, I think obviously they're the ones that highlighted that and have brought attention to each of those criteria. And also provided a lot of the content and information on how to get better and how to learn how to excel through that.
When you look back on your beginning as a coach, do you think you've improved when it comes to group management?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Is it something for me, I think group management, from my perspective out of the 6, has kind of just been like one of those that slowly improves as you get better at the other things. But have you specifically spent time improving your group management? And if so, what have you done?
I think one thing that, like, I'm able to look at things and logistically think through flow and stuff like that. And that's just, I think, just a way that my brain works, which has been good. But where I've been able to really work and get better, obviously, the logistics and flow, you try something, it doesn't work very well, or you try something and it ends up blowing up and you're like, I need to account for that next time. So experience in that sense has helped me over time. But I think the piece of group management on giving every person attention through class is something that I've had to work on and be very aware of, and come up with different strategies on how to make sure that I make it through a class. Everybody gets attention, everybody gets feedback, everybody gets coaching. How do I set myself up to see everybody correctly? How do I set myself up to give everybody praise and that kind of stuff throughout? So I think logistically, a lot of trial and error. You just kind of learn as you go, as long as you have enough awareness to realize what didn't work or what kind of blew up on you. But then you've got to, I think, be more proactive on getting around everybody and providing the attention necessary to truly provide the type of experience that you want to provide for your clients.
Fern, can you think of a time when you were first coaching where you're like, looking back on, you're like, this is a shit show, my group management was terrible?
The first 5 years, probably. I mean, I don't, very few people are good at something like that unless you get feedback. Like I think just like everything, like nobody's good at anything like until they watch you do something. Like you can correct that needs to get a little bit better. And I agree wholeheartedly with Todd. There's two aspects of group management. There's the, I guess if you want to call it the macro group management, like did the group get from A to B, and did we do so in a timely manner? That part, I think, and this is what I think most new coaches could get better at the fastest, because that just involves a plan. Where do I need to be and when, and just like outline that out. The hard part, or the art or the skill of that, is that one-on-one interaction that Todd talked about. That's what comes with the experience. But we could craft out a plan right now, and we know where to get and when, and you could probably execute something that is pretty good. But if you have 15 people in the class and I get 3 individual interactions with 15 people, so make it 45 interactions while getting the entire group from A to B and everybody's having fun and I'm teaching them something, that's an entirely separate conversation. But it starts with, hey, am I organized? The logistics that Todd talked about. Did I think about all of those things beforehand and try to mitigate all the crappy scenarios that I think are going to that are probably going to unfold in this 60-minute class or whatever it's going to be.
So what are some things you do in advance of class to improve your group management?
I think a big thing is writing a lesson plan and thinking through the logistics and flow as far as setup is concerned. So planning for, how many people are going to be in class, and making a plan for if it's a small number or if it's a large number. And then what are the movements and how will that make sense, not only to set up the floor to where all the equipment fit, but then from there, the flow of the workout as far as the sequence of the movements, and then how that'll kind of naturally happen on the floor. I've seen people, set up the gym really well to where there's plenty of space, but like you're going back and forth and everybody's crossing each other and that kind of stuff. So there's also got to be, can I set up the space, but also does it go from the box to the pull-up bar to the barbell, which is in the same sequence of the flow of the workout and that kind of stuff too. So actually spending time beforehand thinking through what class should look like, the setup should look like, what equipment's actually needed, where do people go on the floor, and then what happens if I end up with double the number of people in my class than I'm expecting, or what happens if I end up with half the number of people in class that I'm expecting. What changes will I make if that occurs?
I think that's an interesting topic, because you're used to 8 people showing up and all of a sudden you have 16 or 24, and you're like, often we're like, this is a little chaotic, but we don't think about it from the opposite of, hey, we usually have 8 and today we have 3. That's, from a coaching perspective, sometimes that's worse. Like you have to kind of force the energy out and bring it. Have you ever taught a class where you have a lesson plan laid out, and say you're doing Amanda, which is, as we know, muscle ups and snatching, so 2 high skill movements, and had a class of say 3 or even 8 people that are pretty experienced and just been like, we're not going to teach anything today? Do you guys ever do that?
No.
I don't know a single person that can walk in the gym and just load up the barbell with 135 and find their height rings and just 3, 2, 1, go. Like that
I'm
doesn't.
not suggesting we don't warm up, but I'm just saying, hey, we're not going to grab PVC today. We're not going to do the muscle up transition drill today. You know, warm up as you'd like to for Amanda, or here's my guide, but we're not going to teach.
Yeah, I don't.
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's not ever. It's never happened that way for us, because I think there's value in going through the bar. Even if you don't grab a PVC pipe, I'm going to grab an empty barbell. I'm going to work on some progression steps of the movement to kind of grease the groove and get myself ready to rock and roll. And then I'm going to add a little bit more weight, continue to practice the movement, a little bit more weight, get up to the working weight. Now, I will say that there's I have adjusted my progression over the course of, say, I coach 2 or 3 classes in a row based on my clientele. If I've got, more advanced athletes, maybe we go right into, we work through the progression until we get to a point to where it's like a hang snatch, and we go right into like a hang squat snatch. Whereas with a class that has the majority of people being new, we're going to do a hang power snatch into an overhead squat and slowly but surely work them towards dropping under the bar. So I'll make some adjustments to the progression that I'm using, but I don't ever not teach people something. That's what they're paying me for, not just to use my equipment and to work out.
That's where I think it becomes a little bit more imperative to understand the group and know your audience and say, okay, well, these people, they know how to do the movement. Can I give them the added value of, okay, well, let's talk about cycling this barbell, like that you're not typically going to cover in a newbie class, and scooping the knees out of the way on the return down so that I can have a smooth bar path, bringing the bar back down to the floor. And then, talk about the weird little nuances of, re-gripping the hook grip on the way back down and how you should do that. And then stringing bar muscle ups together. That's where I think you can continue to challenge those athletes who are the ones that typically leave and go find another gym that has sexier program, because you just are no longer adding value to their day anymore. You're just like, oh, well, you know how to do this, so I don't need to take you through the Bergner progression. Well, we could all agree, no, that isn't correct. However, maybe we could fast forward through that progression and get to something that is a little bit more challenging for them, because that's what they want to do.
Well, I think that's an important aspect of group management that gets overlooked, is knowing your audience. And I know for you guys, myself included, when we teach the day 1 workout at the level 2, it's often like, hey, we're trying to throw in something a little sexier, like Fern saying, like, here's how you re-grip, because we've all done, bring it to the knees, bring it to the pockets type of thing enough times. What can I give you that you've not worked on before?
But so I think that's just an issue that I see a lot in the space in general, is that people that are quote unquote experienced are people that have been doing this for a long time. And just because you've been doing this for a long time, it means you're doing it well. And what I find over and over again, I mean, Jay, how long have you been doing CrossFit for?
Wow, like almost 14 years.
Say, because I'm 12.
14 years. And every time we work out, what do I say about your movement?
How great it is. How proud you are of me.
Yeah, definitely not the case. And that's the thing, is like, I think too often we think we need to get to this sexier piece of the thing, the progression, when in reality is like, people need fundamentals. Like, I'll be honest with you, the worst movers in my gym are the people that move to my gym from other gyms 90% of the time. Not all the time, but 90% of the time, because they've been doing CrossFit somewhere else and probably not paid as close attention to the fundamentals, to where it's like, we need way more time teaching you the right position of your squat, teaching you your deadlift, teaching you your press, like going through the snatch example we're talking about. Setup positions are typically not very good. Shoot your foot positions aren't very good. People don't hold the bar in the right place. And I don't care how long you've been doing this, like, very few people need the nuanced, advanced stuff, in my opinion and from my experience. I think more people need to push their knees out a little bit harder and get their hips in the right place and all that kind of stuff.
I don't disagree with you. However, I think there is something, which I know you already know this, Todd. I like to think of it like when I was playing basketball, it's like, yes, we need to run through this play a million times. We need to do all the ball handling drills. We need to do all of that. But at some point as an athlete, I'm just like, hey, can we just fucking scrimmage for a little bit so I can like have a little bit of fun here and just throw down a little bit? And I think, no, I don't think, and any coach or any athlete knows that you're not going to get good by just scrimmaging. Like that is a recipe for disaster. However, it does keep me mentally engaged and it keeps me a little bit hungry because like if you dangle that carrot in front of me, I'm like, okay, well, I get to use some of these skills a little bit instead of just waiting for game day. And that's where I think you can pick and choose where you let people scrimmage in air quotes, in the CrossFit space. But I do think it's a limited number of scenarios, right? I do think it has to be a class that has 0 new people. It needs to be a bunch of people that have been there for a while that you pretty much trust their movement and know how to get after a little bit. And then I think you can kind of take the reins off and say, all right, well, let's throw down a little bit of a challenge here and play a little bit with this instead of just training. Because, I mean, dude, you guys know, and sometimes the eyes roll back in your head, even though, yes, I do need to know. I know I need to work on the first and second pull of my snatch, but like.
See, I feel like the scrimmage, the play part is at 3, 2, 1, go. Like that's where it's my time to do that. And my job as a coach, if you're my advanced athlete, I'm going to go up to you and go, hey, let's try this. I need you to do this in 2 sets today. So, as people are adding weight to the bar, that's when I'll grab you and be like, here's how you re-grip this thing on the way back down. It's interesting. I can remember talking to coaches that are like, oh yeah, I've got this extra class that we're working on, different ways to teach people to cycle toes to bar faster or something like that. And I'm like, well, how many of your members can do 10 toes to bar in a row? And they're like, well, not very many. And you're like, yeah, that's why it doesn't really matter how you cycle them. It's like, you need to teach them how to do it first, right? And they got to have the capacity to do it. I guess I just find that there's less athletes that are at that level than maybe people think they're at that level. Or that's the reality
that
of
I
it.
don't disagree with. No, I think you're spot on there. I'm just, if I had to like quantify it, and this number is not a real number, but I would just say like of 100% of the time, 10% of it as an athlete, like I would just want it to be a little bit loose, or just be like, now as a coach, you choose when that is and you choose the workouts and it's all dependent on the environment. But sometimes I think it's totally fine to be like, fuck it, let's just play around here a little bit and forego this progression. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that can't be the majority of the time.
There's the idea of knowing what your athlete needs and giving them what they want too. Like the 3 of us understand if I take a class at Drive, we're going to grab PVC, Todd's going to hammer these positions, and I can understand it and appreciate it because I know I need it and I know the importance of it. But people,
I'm still gonna be like,
yeah, I'm still gonna, be bored out of my mind. But most people
that's because
don't
you just want to be riding a Peloton bike. That's all. That's it.
I had a big PR yesterday on the Peloton. So, but so that's why when we were talking about the level 2, it's like, hey, it's almost like you're sneaking in a vitamin with peanut butter for your dog or for your kids, where it's like you're gonna get better at this. We're going to disguise it as, re-gripping the bar on the way down. But every time on the way up, we're going to coach you through it too. So I think there's a little bit of that. But
I also think that the blend of, I don't think you can necessarily separate group management and presence and attitude. Right. So we've all been in a class where like, hey, we're drilling the fundamentals, but I'm still engaged and I'm having a good time because the coach is joking around. He's picking on me and doing all those things. So that's something I think should be, and we've all seen it, where somebody's doing something that is technically spot on, but I'm sitting over in the side evaluating class, just being like wanting to bang my head against the wall because it's so insanely boring. Also not effective.
Yeah, you can separate them for sure. They're just, and to continue on that, you can have great group management and crushing the teaching of it, but have no seeing and correcting, right? Just because you know the movement and you're getting everybody to go step by step doesn't mean they're actually, pulling the bar to the right spot or pulling the rings to the right position when they're doing the muscle up. So you can, for all of these, I think what you're saying is the best coaches blend them all well, but there are certainly people that do truly excel at one and are not very good at others.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it. When I came on, I couldn't see shit. And it was That was my feedback every internship. Great presence and attitude, great this, great that. By the way, you didn't see one hip extension, right? And it's
But
like
people
anything,
like you.
like yeah, but people like you. But anyway, you can hide that. So when we talk about group management, like Todd said, obviously you need a lesson plan, but what are some other things that we can be telling people to do now, especially, we were talking about before we hit record that most people are coaching on Zoom right now. You're going to get back to the box, and depending on your state law or how many rules you're willing to break, like Fern, you're going to have
All of them.
3 to 100 people
All
in
of
your class. It's going to be
85
very
people. We're
different.
we're gonna fast forward Memorial Day Murph to this coming weekend when we
Fern's
open.
doing buddy carries on day one back in the box.
Everything's gonna be a
Except for
partner workout.
he's gonna do Memorial Day Murph with it's gonna be 100 squats, 200 push-ups, and 300 pull-ups. Is that right?
Correct.
Good,
Yeah.
good call coming back.
Negatives. We'll do negatives on the pull-ups.
So, but what are some things you've learned from coaching on Zoom?
I think the same rules apply as far as that's concerned, especially with group management goes. Obviously, it's not my job anymore to be responsible for logistically setting up how the equipment's laid out, because people are doing that on their own. But making a point to say everybody's name throughout the class multiple times, checking in on them, seeing if I can get to an angle and make sure I watch their movement enough to see something and say something to try to correct some things. So I think the group management piece, as far as that's concerned, one rolls into the timeliness of what you're able to do getting through all of that stuff. So your lesson plan is less about the logistics of the classroom and now more about the logistics of how much time do I have for each piece of the class? How am I going to teach a progression to people that are on Zoom? But then I think more importantly there is, how do I connect with everybody there? Am I able to say everybody's name? Am I giving them cues? Am I giving them feedback? Am I giving them praise throughout the workout and throughout the class? And I think that's a big piece that we can all take away, because it's pretty obvious if there's dead time during those Zoom classes, or if somebody doesn't get anything said to them, where I think it's less obvious in a true in-person environment.
I think somebody in the mentor group was talking about, they didn't realize how much their presence and attitude was suffering until they had to do it virtually, where they had to be a little bit more of a cheerleader than you normally would in a class. But like, that's what kind of, to some extent, the environment requires, because I'm limited. I can't physically interact with people. So I think for some people, they will have gained a little bit of skill, but I do think we'll probably see something where, obviously, if I'm staring at a computer, movement for me has always been important, right? If you're going to manage the group, you can't get caught in that little coach force field, which is like you stand up at the front of the class and you never move away from the front of the class. And this is something, if a coach struggles to get names and get touch points on people, it's typically, in my experience, because they fail to move around. Like they fail to get, they fail to cover square footage on the floor to get to all the athletes. It's really hard to not interact with people and use names if I'm walking by them repeatedly. It's just awkward at that point. So I think coming back into group classes, just be cognizant of, you need to move, because I've been staring at this computer screen for the past 2 months, and being able to just look around and see that's not going to cut it when people come back in the gym. Like they're going to want that interaction, and social distancing, no tactile cues, all that stuff. I get it, but you're going to need to be moving around and get to people, because it's going to be, virtual is not the same as in real life. Like it's real life is harder.
When you guys have been coaching virtually, are you doing the workout with class, or are you just watching?
No,
Either watching or teaching. Yeah.
Yeah. Coaching. This isn't Peloton.
I always get mad when I'm doing Peloton. Once in a while, the instructor will stop to talk, and I'm like, you better keep going. Like, I'm still going. So, but I've seen it done both ways. It's a little different. I mean, I understand, yes, you wouldn't be in a class working out if you're the coach, but it's a little different on Zoom.
Yeah, it's not like you can correct somebody. I mean, you can within reason, but it's not like you could walk up to somebody and just be like, hey, you should probably take the weight down and maybe flatten your back out and stay on your heels. But.
So do you find when you're coaching on Zoom, you're shooting out verbal cues like that, chest up, the standard stuff, and are people responding to it?
Oh, yeah.
Well, Todd's classes are a little bit different than ours. Like we haven't done so much where like we're coaching people through the workouts. We've just been doing a lot more of the teaching aspect of it and just letting people run with it after that. So typically ours have not looked like a screen full of people that we watch work out. I think that's fantastic. That just hasn't been how ours has panned out, like just as far as like attendance goes. So we've made it work for us, and I think everybody's doing the same thing, just like everybody's a little different.
Yeah.
Can you think of one thing you're going to take from this time teaching on Zoom back to the box?
I think it's just the interaction with people, and I think more of it's been a lighter interaction to some degree. I think sometimes you can get into the business mode of running a class and trying to be super effective, whereas just with the stress of everything going on recently, we've taken the opportunity to have a lighter interaction. And I think people respond well to that. So to try to continue to do that, making sure we're interacting with people and just keeping it light and all that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that both of you guys know this because you've been on camera before for different things, whether it's producing content for HQ or just nutrition stuff.
Todd's
But I think
porn career.
that's right. But I think that I think what a lot of people have not experienced in that world is that presentation matters. And I think when somebody does put a camera on you, you become painfully aware of how good or bad that presentation is. Like, do you stumble over your words? Are you saying too many words? Is there dead space? So I think a lot of people, again, I think if you're evaluating yourself fairly, like should be improved as far as the presence and attitude, and maybe even their teaching.
I don't know what it comes from, coaching for sure, but then also I do believe our experience on seminar staff, the three of us and most people on staff, if you're like, hey, I'm going to shoot something, here we go, 3, 2, 1, put up your camera. They're like, cool, let's roll. Do you guys meet a lot of people where like, hey, I want to do a quick interview, whether it's a box member or someone, they're like, what, you're going to film me? And we forget, and I think all coaches can attest to that. It's like, because we're basically public speakers, we're so accustomed to just being willing to talk. Have you guys, I know,
Oh yeah, no, like this, we went through this when we started doing our Instagram WOD briefs that we post every night with the workout. When we first started doing that, I would see coaches for 30 minutes trying to shoot a 60-second video because they just could not get themselves together in front of the camera. I was like, you can do it in front of the whiteboard in front of real people. Like, just do that right there. But it's weird. Like, you put a camera in front of somebody and they get weird if they've never done it before.
So a little blur of group management, presence, and attitude. But Todd, what was something you've done over the years to improve your public speaking?
Oh my gosh, dude, I couldn't speak to people at all. I took acting classes. I took Dale Carnegie courses. I joined Toastmasters. I've done anything that you can think of to improve your public speaking. I've done it because I literally, all the way through college and grad school, like I literally couldn't talk in front of people. I would stand up and black out, open my mouth, and nothing would come out.
Knowing you now, I've heard you tell me this before, but really, how bad was it? Like, what was the worst you can remember?
So my freshman year of college, we're in our like intro to, I don't know if it was intro to business or something like that. And the teacher's
I can't wait for this story. This is gonna be
great. The teacher's like, hey, you guys are gonna get up in front of the class and you're gonna give like a 5-minute presentation on yourself, like your name, your background, this, that, and the other thing.
Like freestyle. You didn't like not come back.
No, they gave us. They told us to prep for it, like the class before or whatever. And so we get, and I think I had prepped for mine a little bit, but I was super, super nervous. And like there was a handful of kids that were on my baseball team, so they knew me from the baseball field of like being a smart ass and talking shit to everybody and all that kind of stuff. And like the teacher starts calling people to give this presentation. People are going. It gets to the end of class, and I think it's done. So mentally, I'm like, all right, sweet, I didn't get called today. She's going to cut us loose. And she goes, all right, I think we got time for one more. Todd, why don't you come up here? And I freaked out. I walk up in front and like I can't even remember anything. It was a complete blackout. Didn't say anything. It was not any good. She cuts us loose after that. I walk out the door, and one of my buddies from the baseball team immediately walks out and was like, "What the hell was that? Who are you? Like, where did that freaking come from, dude?" It was like the complete opposite of who I was anywhere else in
that's
life.
fantastic.
I remember one time in my master's program, it wasn't me, but a girl basically had the same thing. I forget what the even class was, but she just turned blotchy. Like
Yeah, I'm
her
sure the same
skin
thing.
She got hives.
got hives. Like
Same
watching
thing,
her
dude.
talk, like broke out in hives, and we were all just like, and like stuttering, and like this. I knew the girl a little bit, but I was like, what is like? I think that was one of the moments where I was like, I don't want to ever be like that. Like I need to be able to talk in front of people, and because I was a trainer at such a young age. But what are some? So you go on take these classes, but Fern, what are things you did, especially getting on staff? Because I think for the three of us, that was probably the biggest moment we can look back on, and when our public speaking took off.
For me, it's always been rehearsal and like video or audio analysis, right? So like, growing up playing basketball, I watched a ton of video of game film and stuff like that, and doing self-analysis, trying to pick up tendencies, like what do I do when I'm about to do this, so I can try to figure out if a defender is going to do that. And it's no different from a coaching standpoint, or if you're doing public speaking, trying to figure out what your tendencies are. And we've all been there. Like, somebody says, hey, you have a safe word, or this is it, so you get rid of that one, and then for whatever reason another one pops up and you aren't even aware of it until somebody says, you say right a lot, or like, or nice, or whatever. We've all had that over time where you just say this because it's a filler word. So I think that, and then you just constant rehearsal. And for me, writing it down is a big deal. Like I really do better when I can write down the actual words I'm going to say. And instead of just like reading reading through the content and then going through it myself, I will literally write down the words that I'm going to use, whether it's my story, like word for word, and then I'll try to execute it there just to get a dry run on it. Because we all know it never, you have an idea of what you want to say in your mind, and it never comes out that way if you just like let it flow, unless you have a lot of practice.
Well, I think for all of us, we've given, what are there, maybe 17 lectures on both the level 1s and level 2s in total, and we have
Probably
the ones that we prefer to give, and it's typically because we know it the best.
Or we like the content the most.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, but I mean, meaning it's just like all three of us, I can say, can give the what is CrossFit lecture right now, and deliver it well. Where we also each have a lecture that we're like we would struggle on right now, primarily because either the content doesn't resonate as much, or we just don't know it as well. But like you're saying, Fern, the more you know something, the better you're gonna. I mean, that's step one. Be confident and know the content.
The other thing that a book that helped me tremendously, because it just framed how I looked at giving presentations, was Talk Like Ted. I don't know if you guys have read that book.
Mm-mm.
It's a fantastic book. And one of the things they talk about is, I don't remember the exact time frame, but I think TED Talks are typically like 17 minutes. I think that's like roughly and what they found is that the most effective TED Talks have a pretty defined number of words, meaning like in the whole speech it has this number of words, meaning like the person giving the talk can effectively and smoothly give the content, and it flows well. So that was very interesting to me. And the other thing that honestly has helped me in the lectures is learning to tell a story. There's a story I know, like where I always struggled was the transitions. Like in any lecture I ever stumbled around on, I stumbled because I failed to make the transition from one topic to the next and figure out how to do so smoothly. Once I could figure out the transitions, my lectures improved immensely. And it was not about the content. It was purely about the transitions from topic to topic.
I think the technique lecture is a great example of that, where there's
That
like
one is
six
those are,
different
and there's
stories
tough
that
transitions there. Yeah.
that you're trying to weave together. What else would you say? I mean, because this is, like I said, somewhat presence and attitude. But for me, when it comes to improving your public speaking, it's talk slower.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency of a lot of people, especially early on when they're really nervous, to talk quickly. So I think there's different tricks and things that you can do, like being okay with pauses, like planning in, just like Fern said. I think I went from not being able to talk in front of people to being able to write up something, memorize it, and then spit out exactly what I memorized. But like if somebody asked me a question or if I got thrown off, I couldn't think while I was on the spot. So in those ones where I started like writing and memorizing my presentation, I would have to deliberately put pauses in there to make myself slow down and pause and stuff like that. And then over time, I got to the point where I can talk and actually think on my feet and not just be a brain dead up in front of people and stuff like that.
Where else are we going with group management? You know, people are going to start heading back to the boxes soon. Like you've discussed, people are teaching on Zoom, which is very different. So let's give a few actionable pieces, as we try to do on episodes like this, on what they can do to be prepared, but then also to improve as the weeks roll on and things get back to normal.
I think, like we've talked about already, make sure that you're creating that lesson plan. I think that's going to be more important now, to be super deliberate on layouts and logistics, especially because there's going to be, more than likely, there's going to be some stipulations on how much space is allotted in the gym, and based on the amount of cleanup you're going to have to do and stuff like that. So you're going to want to lay things out beforehand. So you want to write that lesson plan. You want to write up the flow of class. You're probably going to want that to be as efficient as possible, because that's going to limit the amount of exposure one person has to the next. That's going to limit the amount of cleanup that you have. And then I would recommend that people set a goal on how many times they're going to say somebody's name or say something to people. Like make a goal. All right, if we're limited to 10 total people in the gym, that means it's going to be me and 9 people. Can I make it a goal to say everybody's name 4 times over the course of the class that I've got with them? So that way you're trying to hold yourself accountable and giving you something to strive for as you go through this.
I like that.
I was going to agree with that. It needs to be intentional. Like you need to walk in there with like, I have to something specific to do in this class.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're unable to do that while you're coaching, you could have one of the athletes do it, you know, keep a tally, or if a coach is around, the owner's around, you know, write everyone's name down and just tick it off every time you do it. I think that's probably one of the best easy ways to improve your group management and actually make it measurable, observable, and repeatable.
Agreed.
Cool. Well,
the other thing is like it's just like I'm gonna try to do this this weekend, is get the coaching staff in there and just practice a little bit.
How are you
going
to do that?
Each other. We're probably just gonna come and do like a group workout, but I'll probably like have a couple people teach different aspects of it, just for fun, nothing super structured, but getting people back into the rhythm, knock some of that dust off.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's going to be interesting their first day back. But I think, you know, obviously, if for those of us that have been doing it for years, it'll come back quickly. You know, like riding a bike. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Hopefully, it'll happen soon. I mean, I know Fern's been running classes this whole time, but
for 6 weeks now.
We did get an open date though.
What's your open date?
Well, the Essential Business is May 15th.
And our gym's in there?
I don't know.
His is.
Mine is, yeah.
It's essential for Fern.
He's changed his business name to Essential Business.
Yeah.
No, it's the name. We're definitely
essential CrossFit. Literally, how could I listen? That's not my fault. It's confusing.
It's Essential Business CrossFit.
Just sell a couple bottles of beer out of it, and you'll be good. Right? Liquor stores have stayed open; they're essential. So
trying to get multiple citations, one for selling alcohol without a liquor license now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just give it away. No problem.
There you go.
Free beer. Well, good stuff, guys. One of the 6 criteria important to touch on: group management. Looking forward to seeing boxes open and to get back to, you know, coaching others and forging elite fitness as we do. Well, or forging mediocre fitness in Todd's case.
Let's look at the open leaderboard to see how that pans out. Mine's mediocre. What does that mean for yours?
So last question. You think we're going to wind up judging this year? The 3 of us have judged the last 5 years or so. They're going to need judges in Aromas.
right?
I
It
know
all
my name is
depends
on the list proposed.
Your name is on the list?
That was submitted
Oh, listen to
Who?
this
as
guy.
like,
Got
hey,
some insider
proposed. This is like,
Who? Yeah, who are you
Insider.
talking to? Boz? Nicole? Who's
Don't you worry about it.
Greg?
yeah, don't worry about it,
Greg
bro.
Glassman give you the call?
I,
Hey, Fern,
I,
we're gonna
I
need
know
you.
your name is not on the list because they need high performers.
Yeah, that's like literally high performers, and you're.
Hey, Nicole Torres reached out to me.
She told me that.
You know, it's funny when I was watching UFC's coming back this weekend in Jacksonville, and the fights, two of the fights are at 135, so it's a lightweight class. And I'm like, oh, those guys are my height. And then I was looking at one of the guys' height, he's 5'8". I'm like, that's not short. 5'8" is tall. But anyway, I'm looking forward to that as well. But we'll be back later this week with another episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks for listening to Best Hour of Their Day. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. How cool is that? There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, so it becomes super simple. Some of these episodes with Fern or Todd or myself chatting with one another, we've done right within the app itself. Anchor will make it easy to distribute your podcast to all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make an awesome podcast in one place. All you have to do is download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Come on, who doesn't have Spotify at this point? And if you were unaware, Spotify now is offering podcasts. That's right. On Spotify, you can listen to all your favorite artists, but also podcasts in one place for free. Spotify has a huge catalog of podcasts on every topic, including the one you're listening to right now, Best Hour of Their Day. On Spotify, you can follow your favorite podcasts so you never miss an episode. Premium users can even download episodes to listen to offline wherever you are, something I always do before I hop on a plane. And you can even easily share what you're listening to with your friends on Instagram and other social media platforms. Here's the deal. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the Spotify app, search for Best Hour of Their Day on Spotify, or browse some other podcasts if you want. You can find them in your library tab. And also make sure to follow me so you never miss an episode of Best Hour of Their Day. Thanks again for listening to Best Hour of Their Day, and thanks again to our special guest. We appreciate all you guys do for us with Best Hour of Their Day when it comes to sharing our posts on Instagram, when it comes to subscribing to us on YouTube, when it comes to the constant feedback. We are grateful and we appreciate it. We are trying to build a community based on coaching development and becoming the best version of yourself. And it goes without saying that we couldn't do without all of you. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Season 1 of Dropping In is out. We are getting tremendous feedback and we'd love for you to check it out. Leave us a comment on there. Head over to our Instagram. Give us a follow. Like our pictures. Feel free to share anything that resonates with you. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback for us, please don't hesitate. Email us besthouroftheirday@gmail.com. Thanks again. Until the next episode, we hope you've had the best hour of your day.